You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me on socials at SamLittle44 and the podcast at Maple Footy Pod. And now there's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast, and just straight off the bat, just wanted to say a big time thank you to everyone that's listened to the interview with Maxime Fillien of Forge FC. It is the most listened / watched on all platforms of the Maple Footy Podcast, sorry, just the most listened and watched. Just leave it at that. No, the most listened and watched podcast for Maple Footy. So thank you to everybody. I've received a lot of nice DMs on Instagram, some comments and whatnot, what have you. And yeah, I just want to say a big time thank you. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse every time I said it, but I'll say it 1,000 times over. I had a great time getting to chat with Max. It was a lot of fun, and I would love to hopefully get some more guys on the podcast as well. Bring Max on, maybe again. Hopefully, you never know, right? It was a great time though, and I just really hope that if you listened, you enjoyed. If you haven't listened, it's still up. It's not going anywhere. So definitely go check it out. Maybe after this episode, or pause this one and go listen to it and come back here. Whatever one works for you. But yeah, just once again, thank you to everybody. It was a great time, and I'm just glad to see people listening and enjoying and watching whatever, however you consumed it. But yes, thank you so much. But with that being said, let's kind of get into the podcast, this podcast now. So, of course, you know us, we gotta start with the Maple Start. So let's get into that one. So yeah, Maple Start. Let's get into our. Firstly, our women's team have announced today that they will be facing Argentina in April on April 4th and 8th in Vancouver. So definitely, if you are in those areas, might be worth going. Yeah, they'll be playing Argentina, so obviously it will hopefully be an entertaining game. And yeah, I mean, it'll be good to get out and support the women, of course. So definitely, if you can, obviously, by all means, go do that. And then, of course, our men announced that they will be playing 2 friendlies in Montreal before the World Cup, one in October and one in June as a send-off for the boys before they go off to the World Cup. So that's good. I know Jesse Marsh has spoken very highly of Montreal. The boys did a camp in Montreal, not last window, but maybe the window before. Oh man, time's all blurry. At some point under Jesse Marsh's reign, they have been to Montreal and have done a camp there, but have not played there. So definitely, I think that's very good. Montreal has a great fan base and great support there as well. So I think that's very good for the guys. I hope, obviously, we don't know who these friendlies are against. Hopefully, we attract some more good friendlies like we did with Romania and Wales. So hopefully, we can get kind of in around that kind of level as well. Fingers crossed, right? And now moving into MLS stuff, because, guys, MLS is back, and we have a lot of Canadians repping us in the MLS. Funnily enough, this first story is not about the MLS, as it's about an MLS player, but it was when in CONCACAF Champions Cup, Jaden Nelson, despite having a great start to the season, looks like he did his hamstring, potentially. I have not seen any updates since, and this is being recorded about 4 or 5 days after that had happened. He got 2 minutes into the game, pulls up, instantly asks for a substitution off. As they prepare Aliama to come in, Jaden Nelson kind of stays on the pitch. He's not moving terribly, so hopefully it's just a tweak, because it'd be a shame to see him really start this season like amazingly, and then for him to just sustain such an injury at just such a bad time. But we'll kind of keep on that game, as Ryan Gauld, while he is not Canadian, he is a DP for one of our Canadian teams. So he seemed cursed on the night, probably could have left that game with a couple of goals, but in the end, he does grab a big-time assist for the Whitecaps, as now they go into the second leg against Monterrey at 1-1. And sticking with Ryan Gauld, another Whitecaps injury. Oh my gosh. they started the season so well, and now for Atakubi, Nelson, and Gald to all go out injured in the span of, a week of each other? Come on, that's just bad luck. That is just bad luck. Hopefully none of the injuries are that serious. Gald, obviously I'm not a doctor. It didn't look great. But, I, once again, kind of like with Nelson, I haven't seen any reports. So it's up in the air as to how bad it is, how long he could be out. Watch, I'm going to post this podcast and we're going to get news of a return date or something. But yeah, no, just hopefully all three of those guys don't miss too much action. But yeah, just a shame because they started out so well. And then to kind of just get like hampered with an injury right at the start of the season is never a good way to start your season, obviously. And then of course Vancouver played again, wouldn't you know. They played Montreal on the weekend, so all Canadian affair there. Vancouver do get the win 2-0 over Montreal. Ali Ahmed bags an assist, and on Montreal's side, Alexander Goboglu becomes the youngest ever player to represent Montreal at 17 years and 353 days. Sticking with our other Canadian team in the MLS, TFC winless in 3 so far, lost again on the weekend to Cincinnati. Cincinnati are a very good side. People are expecting big things from them this year, but yeah, not the ideal start for TFC. 1 point in 3. What I think is most frustrating is they've looked better than I think a lot of people thought they were going to. They haven't looked terrible. Against Orlando, they didn't look great, but against Cincinnati and the first game of the season against DC, I don't think they looked bad. Like, you can see some pieces there. They still need probably some improvement. I would still say another DP or two, depending on if Insigne gets gone. But yeah, it's frustrating, I think, especially for like the diehard TFC fans, of course. Home opener at least. Maybe the boys can kind of get up for that and put on a good show, put on a good match, and get 3 points, because 3 games, 1 point it's not an ideal way to start your season, but hopefully they do turn it around. Sticking with MLS, our Canadian boys made some noise as Portland did lose. I don't know why I phrase it like that. It made it seem like Portland were going to have a great showing. Of course, McGraw, I almost said Tim McGraw, like the singer, Zach McGraw, he captained Portland, of course, Canadian, and Kamal Miller came on in the last, I think it was like 20-ish minutes. But between the sticks, it wasn't Crepeau, it was Pantimis, who is Canadian. Whilst Portland do lose, he cannot be to blame because he saved 2 penalties on the night. Yeah, that's kind of absurd. I saw a stat that he's now saved every penalty he's faced as a Timber, so that's not bad at least. But yeah, no, Portland let down in other places of the pitch, but definitely not in between the sticks, as they have Pantimis and Crepeau, who is currently out nursing a bit of a knock. But yeah, I mean, what more can you ask for from a goalkeeper to save 2 penalties, Moving into more action, Dane St. Clair and Tani Oluwaseyi beat Mark Anthony K's San Jose 1-0, so St. Clair keeps a clean sheet. Oluwaseyi does not get on the score sheet, but last week I did forget to mention that he grabbed the game-winning assist, so retroactively mentioning it here now. And Kyle Hibbert grabbed an assist in a 3-0 win for St. Louis over LA Galaxy. I actually do like Hibbert a lot, if I'm being honest. I think he's very versatile. He can play center back, can play right back. I quite like him. I think he's a good Swiss Army knife to have, although our defense, for the national team-wise, is pretty stacked. And then some CPL news, just one story here for you. Dada Luke to Vancouver FC has officially been confirmed. It's happened. He is officially put pen to paper. Contracts have been signed. Pictures have been taken. It's happened. He is a Vancouver FC player. Theo Bair in League 1 grabbed a goal, his second of the season. I'm very happy about that. I am, of course, as you know, if you've listened to the podcast before, a big Theo Bair fan. I love the way he plays. I love his work ethic. I love his mentality. I think one of those players that you really want to root for, and I'm really glad he's now gotten some more starts, has started to look better for Auxerre. That is now a goal and an assist in his last, I think, 4 games, which is not bad, honestly. Starting to find his feet, so hopefully more to come. Jonathan David, a striker who has found his feet in France, grabbed a goal on the weekend. That is now 32 goals and assists in all competitions. 32, and we are in March. Sorry, I wanted to be dramatic with that. But yeah, 32 goals and assists. We are in March right now. Once again, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And then finally, Promise David gets a brace in Belgium on the weekend. So Canada's newest addition as a striker is also flourishing. And then sticking in France, although I just took a pit stop in Belgium, Ishmael Kone got his first start for Rennes in a 4-0 loss to PSG. But at least he got on and he started, which is good. Sorry, I think it was 4-1 actually. Not that it really matters. But yeah, no, definitely. Hopefully, first of a few more starts to come, and maybe he can show what we all know is that he's a very class player. Alistair Johnston has now attracted. He's now attracted attention from Italy, Inter Milan. We know the name well. Inter Milan, of course, who currently have Tajon Buchanan, who is loaned out to Villarreal. But yeah, I mean, Alistair Johnston to Inter Milan was not on my bingo card. Obviously, it's only rumors at the moment. But yeah, I mean, if he's gonna play, I'm down for that move. If he's not gonna play, don't go. Those are literally that's my advice. If you're listening, Alistair Johnston, if you're gonna play, yeah, go. If you're not gonna play, I wouldn't. I don't think it's worth it if you're not gonna play. But speaking of Buchanan, I just want to have a word on Tajon Buchanan because once again he found himself coming off the bench for Villarreal in the 96th minute this weekend. It's very frustrating, I think, because he's now at Inter. He was getting 10-minute, 20-minute cameos. And, you know, obviously he kind of felt like he was maybe something was going to happen this new season. But, of course, in the offseason, breaks his leg. And then slowly he kind of starts to get those 10-minute cameos back. And then Villarreal comes knocking. And it's like, well, maybe there's a chance at more playing time, playing more regularly. And I think that's very good. Sadly, that has not been the case so far, which is very frustrating I assume, for him. And just as a Canadian, someone that wants to watch our Canadian boys do well, I think it's very frustrating because you see the quality of player that he is. I think he's quality enough to break into Villarreal. Inter, I do understand it. It's a bit more tough just with the class that they have on the wings and even at wing back. And then Villarreal, I just... Like, it's no disrespect to any player. It's just I feel like he has enough to at least be warranting more than 10 to 15 minutes. And in this case, even like seconds. Like, come on. Like, because then it's like, not to go off on a big tangent here, because then it's like I'd almost prefer you just stay at Inter if you're just going to go out on loan to a lesser side. No disrespect to Villarreal. This is just how good Inter is. You're going on loan to a lesser side to get more play time, get more minutes, get your feet back under you, but you're playing just the same amount, just not in with as good of teammates, as good of a team. And once again, no disrespect to Villarreal, I do think they have a quality side. Just once again, we're talking about Inter Milan, who's one of the best teams in the world at the moment, to Villarreal, who is a good team in Spain. That's kind of the levels we're talking about here. So for me, it's like, well, why is the question, and it's very irritating on a Canadian standpoint because we have the CONCACAF Nations League coming up, semifinal. We need our best players in form, and Tajon Buchanan can be one of our best players. But if he's not playing and not in form, I'm not sure what effect he can have for us. Obviously, there's still a deadly player in there, and he's very good. And as you know, I adore Tajon Buchanan. I have his jersey. I love this guy. But it's just frustrating because to show your best, to be your best, you have to be playing regularly, and he hasn't played regularly in over a year now since leaving Club Rouge, and it's just very frustrating, is my point. And with that, I'm going to end this extremely long Maple start. There was a lot of stories, which is to be expected given the fact that the MLS has started up a lot of Canadians playing the MLS, and then just outside of that, a lot of newsworthy stuff to talk about. But yeah, let's kind of move along into the Prem recap. So yeah, Prem recap. If you don't know how it works, if this is your first time, we start with first segment, match of the weekend. Then we move into biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers, best performance, moment of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, title race. Got it? Good. So yes, of course, let's start with match of the weekend. Kind of similar to a couple weeks ago when I said none of the matches really moved me all that much. Yeah, none of the matches really moved me all that much. And in this weekend, there was a lot of dull just games, like a lot of draws too. And just even like the games that were won was more so about like a moment rather than a cohesive match, I found. But of course, I'm a man of the people, and I will still list off a couple that I thought were relatively decent. And of course, we're coming to crunch time of the season as well, so I don't think it's going to be as high flying as certain weeks were moving forward, just because each team now is kind of in survival mode of, okay, if we're in top four, we got to maintain top four. If we're on the outside of top four, we gotta get in there. We can't do anything stupid that's going to cost us throughout the season. So I do get it, of course. That obviously you're going to play more conservatively, which means the style of play isn't going to be the most fun, electric kind of stuff that we've seen all season, as we have in many great match days. And that's just kind of how it is, and it makes full sense. But yeah, anyways, Nottingham Forest and Manchester City, definitely a game about a moment rather than a whole match. But Nottingham Forest beating Manchester City, getting their get back, essentially, really, because City were one of the few teams that has beaten Nottingham Forest this season, convincingly, at least, when it was, 3-0 back in December, January time. So I think that's pretty big, and especially for City's European hopes, Champions League hopes, I should say, a bit of a dent in it. They're still well alive in this race, like only a point or so off of the top four. But yeah, definitely, obviously, you want to win these games. And Nottingham Forest came, and they are another team that is battling for Champions League. They know what they got to do. And, it wasn't the prettiest. It wasn't the nicest. They definitely had better performances, more electric performances. But in the end, they get the result. They get the win. Callum Hudson-Odoi pops up big with a big goal. Shout out former Chelsea player. But yeah, no, just Nottingham Forest, I think this is a big result for them. And like I kind of said, this was more about the result than the match as to why it's here. But yeah, just a big result at the top of the table, I would say. And you know what? We're gonna go with Tottenham Bournemouth. We're gonna give. I've been a little bit more polite to Tottenham these last few weeks, and we're gonna continue to be polite with them just because Tottenham came back from a 2-goal deficit. That in and of itself is worthy of being here, because when does Tottenham ever come back when it's more than like a goal or two down? It doesn't happen often. They're usually the ones that are giving up the 2-goal leads, so have to give them credit there. But it was probably the most back and forth game of the weekend. Tavernier gets a goal. Once again, Kirkes grabs an assist. He is probably the best left back, in my opinion, this season in the Prem. He will probably be my left back in a team of the year. That's just me, though. Justin Kluivert gets a goal chalked off through VAR, but then Evan Nielsen strikes in the 65th with Justin Kluivert getting the assist. And you're probably thinking, okay, Bournemouth might coast here. Nope. 2 minutes later, Papi Sarr gets a goal for Tottenham, and then in the 84th minute, Son Heung-min scores a penalty to drag Tottenham to a 2-2 draw. And not that Tottenham has a whole ton to play for in this last little stretch of the season, at least Prem-wise. that does hurt Bournemouth. That does hurt Bournemouth, especially with how tight it is for that top 4 race. Potentially top 5, it looking like maybe 5th place can also get you Champions League just based on the new Champions League rules and formats and whatnot of who can get into Champions League. So it's not kind of like I said with City. With Bournemouth, it's not like it's over, but definitely a bit of a chink in that armor to want to go on and get European football for next year. Now let's kind of move into biggest winners of the weekend. And you know what? Screw it. We're staying with Tottenham. Although it was a draw, who would have thought Tottenham Hotspur could come back from 2-0 down? Not me. So just for that alone, I'm putting Tottenham in biggest winners of the weekend. Another big winner, as I've said in the past, I think I should rename this to the Liverpool winners of the weekend because Liverpool are here. Yes, they beat bottom of the table Southampton. Pretty well expected that. I mean, I don't even think the most optimistic Southampton fan expected to get much from that match. Regardless, though, the Liverpool still does beat them, and Southampton, to their credit, did make it more difficult than I think most people thought it would be. But I'm putting Liverpool here just because, of course, they do win, and they extend that gap between them and Arsenal as Arsenal drops points against Manchester United, and you can't be dropping points at this time of the season. We know this. We've been through this. I've talked it to death. And Liverpool don't drop points. Although they might have been a little bit scared at during halftime, maybe. But even then, I think most people probably figure that Liverpool were getting, at minimum, a draw once they went 1-0 down. Like, they're just quality. They know how to get done. They know how to get the win. And that's what they did. Another big winner of the weekend. I will quickly mention Nottingham Forest, although I did kind of basically lump them in here as I was talking about their game. Nottingham Forest, just because I think that's very big for their Champions League aspirations. And obviously, Manchester City, not an easy team to beat. Sure, this season they're a little bit easier, but still, not an easy team to beat. And finally, I am going to put Brighton in here. While they do win pretty controversially, I would say, with a penalty at the death there, those penalties can and can't be given at times, depending on the ref and depending on the day, it feels like. But regardless, you have to take advantage of that, and Brighton do. And I'm mentioning this one here specifically because of kind of like how I said earlier, it's pretty tight in the table. Brighton and Fulham, whilst Fulham are 10th and Brighton are 6th, there is only 4 points separating them at this point in the season, and both these teams have overachieved by a lot this season. Both of them have an outside shot at Europe, and Brighton could even be potentially making a push for a Champions League spot. It's not too crazy to say that, given that they're only 3 points off of 4th place. I think that's massive because if Fulham had won today, when they had played, not today. I'm recording this after they played, of course. If Fulham had won, they would have been on 45 points, just 2 points off of 5th. So I think that's not like a gargantuan, oh my gosh, you messed this one up, Fulham. But I just think it's big for Brighton just because how close it is in that top 10 for everybody. Like, it really does feel like any minor slip up could be the slip up to cost you at this point in the season. And so that's why it's important that Brighton convert that penalty and get the win, regardless if you think it's controversial or not. We can argue that till the cows come home. Regardless, they still win, and that is very, very big. Moving into biggest underperformers. You know it's underperforming when the lights are shining brightest, and if you are Arsenal Football Club, because that is what happens here. Travel to an underwhelming Manchester United squad, and you don't win in a title race. I mean, it's not really much of a race anymore. It's going to take a pretty big bottle from Liverpool to not see this one over the line. Don't worry. I'm sure Arsenal will beat Chelsea when we do play them in a week or two. I know they're one of our coming up games. At some point, we're playing Arsenal very, very soon. But regardless, I just think it speaks to Arsenal every single time around this time of year, the last 3 seasons now. they bottle it the exact same way. They take their foot off the gas. They don't play as well. Mikel Arteta has no plan, no urgency, and yeah, it just doesn't look like he has the answers. Whereas I had said you have to play a bit conservatively coming into this time of the season. I think he puts that on steroids. He plays conservatively for like 3 teams. You know what I mean? Like 3 teams collectively got together, and that's how conservatively he plays, because he just doesn't seem to like want to attack, doesn't want his attackers to attack. He doesn't want no, like defend. And I think it's cost him now. And yeah, I mean, I still find it very funny. I'm sure you saw these going around where Declan Rice is shushing Old Trafford after he scores the equalizer in a game that they, of course, don't go on to win. In a game that really, in the grand scheme of things, probably isn't going to be much for either team this season. Arsenal's pretty much already clinched Champions League, but they're out the title race. So I don't really know who he's shushing. I don't know. It kind of speaks to that stay humble, comment from Erling Haaland. The point of that comment being, you like stay humble. You guys haven't really actually accomplished anything, and still to this point, whilst they are definitely improved from 5 years ago when Mikel Arteta took over, they haven't. He hasn't gotten them that league title. He's gotten them back in the Champions League, yes, which is an accomplishment, but he hasn't gotten them that league title. They've bottled the league title twice at least. Like, if we want to be honest, probably 3 times, but if we're being generous, twice. Definitely that one year when they were top of the league table for 99% of the season, and then bottled it at the end. So it's just very interesting to me that come this time of this season, every single season now, they crumble, and I don't know why. Is it a coaching thing? Is it a mentality thing? Is it a quality thing? Is it a player thing? I don't know. But regardless, once again, it looks like Arsenal Football Club has shot themselves in the foot and won't be finishing as Premier League champions this year. So yeah, I have to put them in underwhelmers. And another underwhelmer, I would say, this weekend are Bournemouth. Just solely for the fact that you are the team that are on the end of a Tottenham comeback. Like, really, that's it. How are you letting Tottenham come back from 2-0 down? How? You know? Everybody knows how much I enjoy watching Bournemouth, and have enjoyed a lot of their players this season. Kirkes, of course, Kluivert, Howson. Like, these players have been very good this season. Evan Nielsen, Semenyo. Like, these guys have been class. But just how you going 2-0 up over Tottenham and not seeing that out? Come on. You know, come on. A final one, Manchester City, as I've kind of already mentioned them a little bit. Yeah, it's not ideal to be dropping points at this time of the season. How, when you're trying to fight for Champions League against a team that you've shown that you can beat pretty comfortably this season. So, yeah, I mean, not the best season for Manchester City, but still could end with top 4. But yeah, just not a great showing for them during the weekend. I would love to give you a few more underwhelmers, but really, for most part, looking at the results, like, most of these aren't really, like, no one really underwhelmed here. Like, Brighton beats Fulham, Palace beats Ipswich, Liverpool beats Southampton, Brentford loses to Villa, Wolves and Everton tie, Leicester loses to Chelsea, and then the other games after that I already mentioned. So, like, I kind of feel bad, like, being like, oh, you underwhelmed, when really all those games are pretty close. They were pretty close, and there was really no shocking thing that happened. Like yeah, even putting Arsenal in here, I kind of feel a bit wrong about, because I'm just retreading the same stuff I've already said about them. Like, they crumbled at the time where they couldn't crumble, and it's just another season without Manchester City. I've talked about them, about how they've kind of underwhelmed this season, and Bournemouth was more so just really a joke. So yeah, I can't really be putting too many people in the underwhelmers this week. I'm sorry for anybody that wanted to get real negative right now. But moving into best performance of the weekend, gonna bring up the City Nottingham Forest game again. Yes, despite it being a 1-0 game, still a good few things to talk about, guys. But yeah, I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi, big time performance. I thought he was showing the flashes of the player that I think Chelsea fans were hoping to see one day in blue. Sadly, that doesn't look like it's going to happen, as he's playing with Nottingham Forest. But yeah, no, just really direct, really wanted to take on his man, was always an outlet, which is always good as a winger. I think him and Nico Williams link up very well on that left-hand side. And him, Chris Wood, and Morgan Gibbs-White, and then, of course, Anthony Alanga on the opposite side of Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think that's a very good front four, and I think they all complement each other very well. Alanga and Hudson-Odoi have that great pace, whereas Morgan Gibbs-White he's a technician on the ball. He's always looking to create something. And then, of course, you have Chris Wood, who at 34 years old just decided to become the best striker in the league. So you can't help but respect that. And yeah, no, just Callum Hudson-Odoi definitely gets a mention, as I kind of just mentioned half the Nottingham Forest team. But yeah, Callum Hudson-Odoi gets a mention here. And then as does Sells, their goalkeeper. He's had a great season. Kind of like Chris Wood at 33 years old, he decides to become, I'm just gonna be one of the best goalkeepers in the league this year, and he has been phenomenal this season. He could be a candidate for goalkeeper of the season. I know that that's judged off of clean sheets. I'm not sure if he has the most or not. I don't know. But just as a style of play and how important he's been for Nottingham Forest, he's had a great season so far, and yeah, I mean, he's been class. Another performance I wanted to give some credit to, Ollie Watkins for Aston Villa against Brentford, who is his former club. I think that now he's done the double over Brentford this year where he scored in both games. I think that is just me. I could have just made that up fully. I can't lie. But I'm pretty sure he did score against them earlier in the season. But like I said, if I'm making that up, do call me out on that. But yeah, no, I just thought he had a very good game. Just a good... He's just so much more than just like a put it in the box and I'll score kind of striker. I think he is more than that. And I think he has shown that time and time again. He was available for his not front three, but the guys behind him in a three, and Ramsey, Rogers, and Bailey. I find his link-up play is very, very good. When he be linking up with some of those guys like a Rogers or like a Ramsey, it was kind of hard for Brentford to figure them out. Like, is he going to take this ball on? Is he going to try to dribble past us? Is he going to lay it off? Is he going to play give and go? Is he going to find his way, make a run into the box? I find he's a very difficult player to mark and to kind of read. And that's what you want from a top-level striker, of which Ollie Watkins is one of the top ones in the Premier League. And he showed it this weekend. Grabbed himself a goal against his former club. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty good, and especially kind of like Villa, as many teams that I've said this episode, it's so congested. It is so congested in that top four race. Any win, it does not matter how you get it. If you get those 3 points, that's what matters. And yeah, because it's just that close that really, like I said, any slip up feels like it could be that slip up. So Ollie Watkins making sure Villa don't slip up, don't drop points, gets a goal. That's what a proper striker needs to do. They need to step up, and that's what Ollie Watkins does on this weekend. Moment of the weekend, I only have 2. One of them breaks my heart because Cole Palmer has officially missed a penalty. But yeah, that moment brings an end to Cole Palmer's 12 in a row without missing. I believe, if not the longest stretch for a Premier League player, up there as one of the longest for a Premier League player for not missing. So shout out to Harmsman, who is the one that stops that. It's a solid stop. And credit to Cole Palmer, who apparently was battling illness this week and requested to play. I don't know how true that is. That's what Enzo Maresca said in the press conference after being drilled with questions about Cole Palmer. I think he had enough and decided to tell everybody that Cole Palmer had been ill this week. So if that is true, shout out Cole Palmer. I rate the dedication to Chelsea for wanting to get them into top 4, and what a run it was. I will reminisce on those penalties for a long time because, my goodness, 12 in a row without missing is crazy, but good on Harmsman, did his homework, guessed right, gets a firm hand behind it, and saves it, keeps Leicester in the game, although, of course, Leicester don't end up going to win. If they have gotten a draw even, or a win, I think we'd be looking back on this as like a lot more like, oh my gosh, like that penalty was massive for Leicester that he saved that. But sadly, that's not the case, so it's really just a stat at this point of who ended Palmer's penalty reign. Sadly, it does come to an end. But yeah, no, credit to Harmsman. It was a very good stop. And then another moment, Tottenham completing the comeback, and I'm not doing this as a tongue-in-cheek way, genuinely, coming back from 2-0 down, turning it around, that's pretty good, especially given that you go down 2-0 and then 2 minutes later you get a goal. That's the kind of fight that I think Tottenham fans have been wanting all season from this team that they have not gotten from this team all season. So I think that kind of shows that maybe there is something to maybe cling on to with this bunch of players, if we're trying to be optimistic. But yeah, no, just something that's been missing for Tottenham is it feels like whenever they kind of go down, okay, we're done. We're done. But not here at all. They complete the comeback and get 2 points, and I think that's at least, if anything, something that Tottenham fans can cheer about in this quite poor season. So now let's move into the relegation zone, and I mean it's the same as it's been. Southampton lose, Leicester lose, Ipswich lose. All of them really look like they're heading straight back down, don't they? Southampton has looked that way pretty much all season. Leicester and Ipswich have at least shown fight here and there throughout the season. But yeah, in the end, it doesn't look like it's going to be enough to stay up. Wolves grab a point against Everton, making that gap from 5 to 6 points now for Ipswich and Leicester away from Wolves. And yeah, Wolves looking like the only team not in the bottom 3 that are still in jeopardy of going down. But I really don't think there's a ton of jeopardy here. The bottom 3 just don't look like they have it to stay up. As I've said with Wolves multiple times this season, I have thought that they would stay up. And also just with guys like Cunha who can kind of bail you out at times. Ipswich and Leicester, they just don't really have that. Maybe if Leicester had a prime Jamie Vardy, it would be different. Maybe if Ipswich had a Liam Delap in maybe about 2-3 more years where he's a bit more developed, maybe got a bit more to his game a little bit, maybe it's different, but obviously that's not the case, right? And it looks like Wolves have done enough to kind of stay up, whilst not mathematically safe, of course, and anything can happen. We could see a great escape. You never know, can't write it off. But yeah, just looking like it could be over there. Moving into Europe, oh my goodness, get ready to hear about half the league called. So you got Fulham in 10th on 42. Newcastle ahead of them with 44. Newcastle, by the way, yet to play Southampton as of recording this. Just a little nugget. But yeah, Newcastle then ahead of them. Then Bournemouth level on points with Newcastle. Aston Villa in 7th, a point above Bournemouth. And then Brighton above Villa in 6th, a point above them. Then a point above them, Manchester City in 5th. Then 2 points above them, Chelsea in 4th. Then 2 points above them, Nottingham Forest in 3rd. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. It's pretty close up there. It's just from Forest to Fulham, from 2nd to 10th, is 9 points. 9 points. That's it. And you may be going, how is 6 points enough to stay up, but 9 points isn't enough to guarantee you Champions League? Just because that pack of European chasers has been so inconsistent, but has at least shown flash of quality, that I could genuinely see people just flip-flopping all around here, Fulham is definitely a long shot to make Champions League, but you could see them make a Europa League or Europa Conference League push here, genuinely. Yeah, it is getting tight. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter how you get the wins at this point in the season. If you get them, that's all that matters. You cannot slip up. Look at how close that is. Look at how close that is. Literally, as I said earlier, any slip-up feels like it could be the detrimental slip-up for your team's season, and you don't want that, which is why these teams are playing so conservatively right now. Nobody wants to slip up. Chelsea can't afford it. Forest can't afford it. City can't afford it. Brighton can't afford it. Villa, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Fulham all cannot afford a slip-up if they want to be playing European competition next year. And it's very fascinating because it is so close up there. I have no idea who's going to land where. There could be a world where Chelsea is back in Europa Conference League next year. Really. There could be a world where Manchester City misses Europe altogether. There could be a world where it's Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth in 3rd and 4th at the end of this season. It could genuinely all happen. We genuinely do not know because it is just it's so congested and just so close. It's very interesting. So definitely good. This is the thing to watch. Relegation feels done. League title feels done. Europe feels far from over with 9 games left. 9 games left, and it is far from over. The only two that feel like they have booked their tickets to Europe are Arsenal, who at this point is now just maintaining top four. I don't see them making a late charge for a league title. They are 15 points back of Liverpool. They do have a game in hand, but even if they win that game, that is 12 points with 9 games to go after that. So, yeah, we know. And Arsenal, who do they have next? I think it might be Chelsea. It is Chelsea. They have Chelsea next on Sunday. So really, and Liverpool don't play next weekend. Well, they do. They just play in the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle. So they've already played their match week 29 against Aston Villa, of which they drew. They got points for it, right? So Arsenal needs to beat Chelsea. I hope they don't, but let's be real. They probably will. But yeah, Arsenal, it really does feel like probably not going to get the league title, but also probably not falling out of top four. It feels like they're playing Champions League next year. And speaking of league title, let's kind of look at the league title. This is going to be a pretty short segment. Yeah, it feels like Liverpool have this wrapped. Just don't mess it up. Really, that if you want my advice, Slot and all the Liverpool players, don't mess it up. That's my advice for you, because yeah, I mean, it feels done. It felt done last week. Like last week really felt like the week where I was like, okay, barring some miraculous thing, this feels over. And that didn't change this weekend. It still feels very much like, yeah, this is Liverpool's league title to lose. And unless you see a generational bottling, I just don't see it. I really don't. It feels like they have enough. Feels like they know how to see this one out. Arsenal feels extremely inconsistent at the moment, and Arsenal really pose the only threat to the league title. So yeah, I really think that it's probably wrapped up. But you never know. Anything can happen. But that does kind of bring to an end this episode of the Maple Footy Podcast. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, big time thank you if you've listened to the Maxime Fillion interview. If you haven't, definitely go and check it out. I think it's worth it. I think it's the best episode I've done, and I think it was just a lot of fun too. So definitely go check that out. Thank you, of course, for sticking around and listening to me ramble about the Prem for a little bit, talking about Canadian soccer. I'm sure the CONCACAF Nations League roster will be dropped soon, because that is coming up in 10 days. The actual game, we play Mexico in 10 days, guys. A week this Thursday, we're playing Mexico. So definitely mark that on the calendar. Watch that game. Watch out for the roster dropping. It has to drop very, very soon. Like, I would assume probably sometime this week. And yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye on our socials for any updates. Maple Footy Pod and Same Little 44 on all platforms. And yeah, outside of that, once again, just thank you so much for listening. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates. Remember to support Canadian football, be kind, and until next time, live, laugh, little.